Hello, Cassidy.
Hello.
Thank you for letting me interview you regarding Erikson's psychosocial stages of development.
Absolutely.
The purpose of this interview is for you to demonstrate your understanding of the theory and how the theory applies to you and your students you currently teach or plan to teach. First, imagine I have never heard of Erikson's theory of psychosocial development. Briefly explain salient features of Erikson's theory of psychosocial development. What is the source of this information?
Well, I'm going to be getting all of my information from Robert Slavin's textbook on educational psychology, the 12th edition of Theory and Practice. It's a great resource, and I would highly recommend it. So Erikson's theory of psychosocial development is kind of like a roadmap for the human brain and the different developmental stages that we all go through when we are learning both psychological skills and social skills. These theories are very, in my opinion, well constructed because they definitely take into account the environment in which a child is raised, or the environment in which any person is growing up or growing old in even. And this role of the environment is very crucial because it identifies where someone is in their developmental process is largely influenced, and their personal crises are both solved and resolved based on the environment that they are surrounded in. So that is really great to me because I think that we can't talk about no human exists in a vacuum. And so we need to account for environmental differences between people, as well as acknowledge the different outcomes that can come from interactions with these different environments.
At what stage of development do you see yourself now? Why do you think so?
For me, I believe I am in the 6th stage of intimacy versus isolation. I am a young adult. I'm 24. But I feel very secure in my identity, in my personal identity, which is a key component of the intimacy versus isolation step. Because before you can find your partner, like a life partner, a spouse, or anything like that, which is signature to the 6th step, one must understand who they are first in order to fully share their life with another person. So I feel like I have done a lot of soul searching already, and kind of been able to differentiate myself from the different institutions that I'm a part of, where I had difficulty with that, say in my identity versus role confusion. Separating myself as an individual between myself and my school, equating my self-worth with my grades or the church, equating myself with the different beliefs that the church had, not necessarily ones that I critically thought of for myself. So I believe that that is the stage that I am in right now.
Explain how being at this stage of development may influence your behavior and outlook in your classroom. On what do you base this explanation?
Well, like I said before, a key step to the 6th step is security in one's identity. I believe that my identity will help me to be very confident in what I'm bringing to my students. One of my key factors, I believe, of my identity is that my ideal of equality and my belief in feminism. And I want to make my classroom a multicultural classroom where all students, regardless of race, gender, class, wealth, are accepted and able to learn in a safe environment for everyone. And that's part of my identity that I really value, that I value justice along with compassion and equality for all students, including myself as a human and everyone else. So I think that my foundation, the foundation of my beliefs in equality and equity in education, will positively impact my students and help me create a much more equitable classroom environment.
Identify at what level your students are, or likely to be at, in Erikson stages.
So I am getting my single subject teaching credential in English, and I aim to teach either middle school or high school students. I do want to teach mainly drama, but I am very excited to teach an English class if I get that opportunity as well. So in a middle school or a high school, if I was going to teach at a middle school level, usually middle schoolers enter the 6th grade at around 11 years old. And at least with the middle schools around me, we usually go from 6th, 7th, and 8th grades, although I do know in some areas they do just 7th and 8th grade in middle school. So between 6th and 8th grade, I believe a lot of my students will be in the stage 4 industry versus inferiority stage. Where they can begin to rely more on teachers as well as their peers for social engagement and support systems, more so than their parents. So they're starting to establish more of their personal circle beyond just their immediate family. And the role of teachers and their peers becomes much more valued to the students or to the humans in step 4. So these kids also will want to make things, and failure for them could possibly create a negative self-image. So that's great for me as a theater teacher. I want to make things all the time and help my students to make things so that they can feel like they are successful and that they have accomplished something. And I'm going to kind of not shy away from failure, but encourage them to find their own opinions and their own unique voices. And just because their choice or their opinion is different than mine as a teacher does not mean that they failed, but that their effort in collectively putting on like a small play or something like that is what is graded. So if you put the effort forward, you will succeed. And then they also might be in high school and the identity versus role confusion. I feel very comfortable with this because I have very vivid memories of myself being struggling with role confusion, especially in areas, like I said, the church and the school. And so when you're asking yourself, who am I? I'm going to encourage my students to look inward and what they truly value instead of looking for affirmation from outside sources, including me as a teacher. So I know that it is a time of change for them, so I need to be a little bit more flexible. And as they turn to their peer groups more and more, even as the teacher, to make sure that all of my students are reacting in a positive way, so that everyone stays safe, even when in a highly collaborative environment.
Explain how being at this stage of development may influence their behavior and outlook in your classroom. On what do you base this explanation?
So they're looking to their peers for what to do more so than the teacher. So if I can get my kids to be engaged and happy to be there, excited about learning and working on their own, I believe that will really help them be successful in my classroom, to stay on track, because they will eventually have to perform in front of their peers. So both looking for approval from their peers will positively impact them in order to help them, to motivate them to do the work, especially in a theater setting.
What might be some disconnects between you and your students, keeping the differences of the two stages in mind?
So mainly, I know who I am, and they're still trying to figure it out. It's my job to guide them through what they're going through and guide them through their thoughts, but it's not my place to make those decisions for them. So I need to be weary of my position of power, that they are not I don't want my students to put me on a pedestal in a way that they present answers that they think I want to hear. I want them to do their own critical thinking and make their own choices that are supported by the text and by their own study. So as long as I can maintain kind of my distance from them, guiding them instead of demanding things from them, I think that will influence them to do their best creative work.
Any final comments?
Nope, I think I'm all good here. Thank you so much for your interview, and I hope to see you out in cyberspace. Bye-bye.